Hey everyone, this is Preach J here, and I want to welcome you to today's episode on FAQ, frequently asked questions about the subject of divine healing. And today I want to cover the subject, what is the difference between a healing and a miracle? Stay tuned, it'll bless you. Welcome back. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, right here I have covered the question of what is divine healing? Does God still heal today? Is healing only for physical illnesses? And if you haven't seen any of this previous episode, I'd like you to subscribe to this YouTube channel, like the video, comment, and then you will get notifications on when more videos about your frequently asked questions on divine healing is posted. And today I want to cover one of the most frequently asked questions that people ask. And it is the question of what is the difference between a healing and a miracle. And usually people get these questions from 1 Corinthians chapter 12, from the gifts of the Spirit. And I'm just going to read 1 Corinthians 12, then I answer the question. 1 Corinthians chapter 12 from verse 7. And this is the chapter about the gift of the Spirit. It says, the manifestation of the Spirit is given to each one to profit, to each one for the profit of all. It says, to one it is given the word of wisdom through the Spirit, to another the word of knowledge through the same Spirit, to another faith by the same Spirit, to another the gifts of healings by the same Spirit, and to another the workings of miracles. So you see, it mentions healing, the gift of healing, and the workings of miracles. And I've seen people try to explain it like the difference between a healing and the working of miracle is when have you seen a healing evangelist lay hands on somebody and they're moving the legs and they're picking up the legs and they're walking them through the healing, and that is a working of miracle. That's what people explain as a working of miracle. But I think I have a more scriptural answer to that. And the healing and the workings of miracles. So people ask, then what is the difference between the gifts of healing, like he mentioned in 1 Corinthians 12, the gifts of healing and the workings of miracles? To another, the gifts of healing, to another, the workings of miracles, to another, prophecy, discernment of spirit, different kind of tongues, interpretation of tongues. But the one and the same Spirit works all these things by distributing to each one individual as he wills. So then the question comes up, what is the difference between the gifts of healing, like you mentioned, and the workings of miracles? I think scripturally, the answer is in its definition. And it's just basic English. The answer between what is the difference between the healing, the gifts of healing, and the gifts of miracles and miracles. What is the difference? The difference is in the definition. And there's no need to get theological about it. It's basic English and it's in the definition. And I put it this way. What is healing? The healing is a restoration. The ministry of healing is a ministry of restoration of whatever is lost, broken, or stolen. Lost, broken, stolen, restoration. The restoration of health, the restoration of a body, the restoration. That's the ministry of healing. The restoration of health that is either broken, lost, or stolen. And that is the definition of a healing. And then what is the definition of a miracle? A miracle is an event that is not explainable by natural or scientific laws. That's a miracle. So a healing, take this one more time. A healing has to do with the restoration of health that is lost or stolen, while a miracle has to do with an event that is not explainable by the natural or scientific laws. Now, when you put the two definitions together, you realize that a healing can be a miracle, but not all miracles are healings. Do you get it? A healing can be a miracle because sometimes a healing has no natural or scientific explanation. You can't explain it. It wasn't there, now it's there. The body part wasn't there, now it's there. When it has no explanation in the natural or by natural scientific laws, then the healing is considered a miracle. It wasn't there, then it's there. The eyeball, T.L. Osborne in Tanzania prayed for a young child who was born without eyeball. There was no eye. There was no space there for eyes. And a few days later, an eye had grown out. That's a miracle. You know, it's a healing, but it is a miracle because there is no explanation for it by natural or medical or scientific laws. It has no explanation for it. So sometimes or all healings can be miracles, but not all miracles are healings. And I want to take you through the book, just a little Bible study through the book of John. You know, the book of John took us through a process where it talked about, okay, this is the first miracle Jesus did, the second miracle, and show you some were healings that were considered miracles, but some were miracles that were not considered healing. And then in those examples, you can see what is a healing and what is a miracle. So John chapter 2, verse 11. John chapter 2, and you know, chronologically, this is the first miracle that was recorded about Jesus in the book of John. And John chapter 2, verse 1, it talks about Jesus turning water into wine. And I'll just read, the next day there was a wedding celebration in the village of Canaan in Galilee, and Jesus' mother was there. And Jesus and his disciples were also invited to the celebration, and the wine supply ran out during the festivity. So Jesus' mother told him, they have no more wine. Verse 4, dear mother, that's not our problem. Jesus replied, my time is not yet come. But the mother told the servants, do whatever he tells you. Standing nearby were 6 stone water jars used for Jewish ceremonial washing, and each could hold 20 or 30 gallons. And Jesus told the servants, fill the jar with water. And when the jar had been filled, he said, now dip out and take it to the master's ceremony. So the servant followed this instruction. And when the master of the ceremony tasted the water that was now wine, not knowing where it had come from, he called the bridegroom over and said, a host always serves the best wine first. He said, then when everyone has had a lot of drink, he brings out the least expensive wine. But you have kept the best wine until now. Now, verse 11, let me ask a question. Is that a healing or is that a miracle? By definition, a healing is a restoration of a health that was lost or stolen. And a miracle is an event that has no natural or scientific explanation. So what is this? A healing or a miracle? It's a miracle. So verse 11, the Bible says, this miraculous sign at Cana in Galilee was the first time Jesus revealed his glory and his disciples believed in him. So he called it a miracle. So the first supernatural thing that Jesus did wasn't a healing. It was a miracle. When he turned water into wine, that was a miracle, not a healing. And then if you go to John chapter 4, what was considered the second supernatural experience, in John 4, as he traveled through Galilee, he came to Cana, where he had turned water into wine. There was a government official in a nearby Capernaum whose son was very sick. When he heard that Jesus had come from Judea to Galilee, he went and begged him, Jesus, come to Capernaum and heal my son. So you see, healing has a lot to do with sickness. Healing is about sickness, but not all miracles are about sicknesses. You see that? Healing has to do with sickness, the restoration of health, but not all miracles has to do with sickness. Like the turning of water into wine had nothing to do with sickness. That was a miracle and not a healing. Come and heal my son who is about to die. Verse 48. And Jesus asks, Will you never believe in me unless you see a miraculous sign and a wonder? And the official pleaded, Lord, please come before my little son die. And then Jesus told him, go home, your son will live. Verse 53, at John verse 53. And the father realized that was the very same time that Jesus told him, your son will live, and he had and his entire household believed in Jesus. And this was the second miraculous sign that Jesus did in Cana of Galilee. You see, although it was a healing, the Bible calls it still a miraculous sign because it still has no natural explanation and no scientific explanation. It breaks all scientific laws. It was there and it wasn't there. So this is an explanation of a healing that is also considered a miracle. And then we go to John chapter 5 verse 1. John 5:1. And this is the man, the Bible says, who was by the well side, the healing at Bethesda, and Jesus went and healed him. That is a healing. But the Bible also calls it a miracle because it has no natural explanation. But if you go to John 6 verse 1, when Jesus fed 5,000 people, John chapter 6 was a feeding of 5,000 people. Jesus fed 5,000 people without by multiplying 5 loaves of bread and 2 fishes. That is not a healing. That is a miracle because that event had no natural law or scientific explanation. He took 5 loaves of bread and 2 fishes, and you know the story, and he prayed and thanked God, and it multiplied. 5 loaves of bread was able to feed over 5,000 people with 12 baskets left. That was a healing. That was a miracle and not a healing. And that is the workings of miracles. Then you go to John chapter 6. John chapter 6 verse 16, where Jesus walked on water. Now let me ask you a question. Would that be a healing or would that be a miracle? It is a miracle. And so then you see the answer to the question, what is healing? What is the difference between healing and miracles? The answer is in the definition. You don't get theological about it. You don't get doctrine about it. You get just, it's English. Healing is the restoration of a health that was lost, stolen, or broken, or a miracle is an event that is not explainable by natural or scientific laws. You can't explain it. You can only believe it. You can argue with it. You can only believe it. All healings are miracles, but not all miracles are healing. So if you go back to 1 Corinthians 12, from that explanation, then we answer the question, 1 Corinthians 12. First Corinthians 12 from verse 7. A spiritual gift is given to each of us so we can help each other. To one person, the ability to give wise. Now I'm reading the New Living Translation. To one person, the ability to give wise advice. That's the word of wisdom. To another, the same Spirit gives a special knowledge, the word of knowledge. The same Spirit gives great faith to another, the gift of faith. And to someone else, the Spirit gives the gift of healing, the ability to restore health to anyone who has lost it, whose health is broken, or whose health has been stolen. He gives the gift. And some has it, the gift to restore health. But then he went further and said to another, he gives the power to perform miracles. I like that he used perform in the New Living Translation because it's usually an event. It's usually like a performance, the walking of water. He walked on to perform miracles. He walked on waters. The turning of water to wine, the multiplying to perform a miracle, the multiplying of bread, the 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish to feed 5,000 people, the ability to perform a miracle. And also in the definition is the answer. And I hope I was able to answer your question today. What is the difference between a healing and a miracle? If you haven't liked the video, like the video. If you enjoyed it, leave a comment. If you have any further question about divine healing, you can type it in the comment, and I'm going to take a whole section, do a video, and answer your question. If you haven't yet subscribed to our YouTube channel, I want to encourage you to do so right now. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, and God bless you. I'll see you next time.